In this video, I'm going to show you how you can build this exact storage rack you see behind me here, 4 rows wide, 5 totes tall. The material required for this project, we need 14 2x4s at 8 foot long, 14 2x2s also 8 foot long, approximately 3 pounds of 2.5-inch wood screws, 3-inch wood screws will also work. Then we need an impact driver, a drill, a tape measure, something to cut the material, which could be a circular saw, a jigsaw. A miter saw though is going to be your easiest option for cutting.
You're going to need 20 of these totes. These are 102 liter or 27 gallon totes. You can buy these at a number of different places. From my experience, Home Depot is the cheapest. I'm going to read you off the dimensions of this just so that you can confirm your totes are the same. We are 28.5 inches long, 19.5 inches wide, and it is 15 inches tall. So before building this, if you're getting your totes from somewhere other than Home Depot, even if they're 102 liter or 27 gallon, just make sure the dimensions are the same. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our 2x2s and we are going to make some measurements on here. So using our tape, we want the 2x2s cut at 27 inches and we need a total of 40 2x2s. So I'm going to mark 27 inch. Each of these 8-foot 2x2s, we can get 3 pieces at 27 inch. So our first mark's at 27, our next mark is at 54, and our third mark is at 81. I'll bring you guys in and show you this. As you can see, our first mark is at 27 inches, and then our next mark is at 54, and our last mark is at 81. I've made all these measurements. We're going to take our speed square and we're going to use this to trace a line. So we're going to go all the way up and trace these 3 lines. Now to make this even faster, we can mark multiple 2x2s at the same time. So if we lay them side by side, as long as the bottom is flush, which the bottom is flush here, we can now use our speed square and we can transfer this mark across multiple. So this is going to speed this whole process up. You just want to make sure that the bottoms remain flush. Okay, I've got all the 2x2s measured. Now I'm going to cut them. Again, we want a total of 40 cut at 27 inches. So I've got my miter saw set up here. We're going to cut all of these. I cut right on the line. Again, we can get 3 pieces out of each 8-footer. And the excess is going to be scrap. So this leftover piece is just about a foot. It's scrap. There's no need to keep that. We've got all 40 of the 2x2s cut at 27 inches. Now we can move on to the next step. We've got the 40 2x2s cut at 27 inches. So we can put these off to the side now. And then we're going to take 10 of the 2x4s and make measurements on those next. Everybody, one other thing I should have mentioned, when you're buying lumber, you want to look at the lumber and make sure that it's relatively straight. So stick it up on end, look down the top. You want to avoid anything with big humps, warps, twists, or bows. So as you can see, this lumber here is relatively straight. Now we have 10 of the 2x4s set aside here. So we're going to mark the 10 of these at 84 inches. And again, we can line the bottoms up flush and transfer this across just like that. If you don't have a miter saw, I'm going to show you how you can cut something like this with a circular saw. So using your speed square, this is what keeps the guide of this saw straight. We're going to line it up on that line and make the cut. So as you can see, we've got a perfectly straight cut there. That's how you do it with a circular saw. If all you have is a jigsaw, it's the exact same technique. Use your speed square, run the jigsaw along the speed square and make your cut. The jigsaw is going to be really slow, but you can do it with one of these. So I've got the 2x4s, 10 of them marked at 84 inches. Now we're going to cut them. And again, this scrap piece is a foot, it's waste. So I'm gonna cut all of these. We've got the 10 2x4s cut at 84 inches long. As you can see, they're cut at 84 inches. So now we are going to use these for the sides of the shelf. So we want to lay out where to put the 2x2s. I'm going to show you guys the layout. Start by putting a B for bottom. Now using our tape, we're going to make our first mark at 15 inches. Our next mark, 31.5 inches, 48 inches, 64.5 inches, 81 inch. So I'll bring the camera in and show you guys this. Okay, so our first mark is at 15. Our next mark, 31.5, 48, 64.5, and our last mark is at 81 inches. All right, we've got the bottoms flush. So now using the speed square, we are going to transfer these lines. I've got all those lines laid out. We want to put an X on the bottom side of the lines. So I'll show you guys what this looks like. Okay, we'll bring the camera in. So as you can see, we have an X on the bottom. So when we end up doing the 2x2s, the 2x2 is going to sit with the top of the 2x2 on that line. So the X represents where the 2x2 goes, which side of the line. It goes on the bottom side. We're going to mark 4 of these the same way, where we only put the marks on one side. The remaining 6, we want to make those same marks on both sides. So I'll fast forward through this.
To clarify, we want to keep 4 of these 2x4s with measurements on one side. These are going to be the outsides of the rack. And then the other 6 2x4s, we want to put the same measurements on both sides. Again, the measurements are 15 inch, 31.5, 48, 64.5, and 81 inches. These are going to be the inside of the rack.
Got these all measured. 6 of them, we put the measurements on both sides. And then the other 4 only have the measurements on one side. So these 4 are going to be our ends, and these 6 are going to be the inner ones. So now we're going to take these and start laying out the 2x2s on top of them. We're going to start with the 4 ends that only have measurements on one side. Okay, we've got the 84 inch pieces that we have measured out. So we'll go 2 at a time, lay them out like that, and then each of these gets 5 of the 2x2s. So we're going to take our 2x2s, and like I showed, we want the 2x2 to sit flush on the top of the line. So this is the bottom of the 84 inch piece, and we've got our X's on the bottom. So we're going to mount 5 of these on each. And when we do this, we want to pre-drill, and we're going to put 2 screws on each piece. Wood glue is optional. I tend not to use it, but you can add it for extra strength.
Now we're going to start to assemble these. We want the edge of the 2x2 to be flush with the edge of the 2x4. Again, we're going to pre-drill, put 2 screws in each. We're using 2.5 inch wood screws here. And like I said earlier in the video, we want the top of the 2x2 to be sitting flush with the top of that line we drew. It should cover the X that we put on. We're going to mount all 5 on here.
So here it is. We've made our first one, 5 2x2s, and we're going to make 2 where they're just on one side, and then we're going to make the rest where the 2x2s are on both sides. Okay, so as you can see, I've got this done up with 2x2s on one side. So now I'm going to flip it over, and we are going to put the rest of the 2x2s on the other side. So we're going to build 3 of them like this, where the 2x2s go on both sides.
Building these ladders are definitely the slowest part of this entire project. Make sure you take your time, get everything in line, get it nice and straight, make sure that it's sitting on the line and that you have everything flush, and then you can move on to the next step.
All right, so as you can see, I've got this. with the 2x2s on both sides. So we want 3 to be built just like that, which I'll show you guys all 3 of them now. These are going to be the middles of the shelves. And then we have 2 where we have the 2x2s just on one side. So these are going to be the ends. And that's what this looks like with all of these shelves built. So we have a total of 5, 2 of them with 2x2s on just one side, 3 of them with 2x2s on both sides. Okay, we've got the last 4 2x4 8-foot. We're gonna measure 88 3/4 inch. So using our tape measure, 88 3/4. We'll show you this quick. We have 88 3/4 inch. So we've got the 88 3/4 inch measured. We're gonna mark all 4 of these and then we're gonna cut them. And this cutoff is also gonna be scrap. So we've got these 4 pieces cut at 88 3/4. Now we wanna lay them out. These are gonna be the bottom and the top that our ladders sit on. So I'm gonna show you the measurements. Our first mark, 1.5, 21 3/4, 23 1/4, 43 1/2, 45, 65 1/4, 66 3/4, 87, 88 1/2. So this is our spacing. We want 20 1/4 inches in between each of the ladders. So you can lay it out like this, or using a scrap piece, you can cut a piece at 20 1/4 to use as a spacer. I'm gonna cut this at 20 1/4 and I'll show you guys as I'm assembling this. And the one ladder only has the 2x2 on the one side, and then we have 3 ladders with the 2x2s on both sides, and the other end is just like that. So that's the layout we want. Now we're gonna attach 2 of these 2x4s cut at 88 3/4. We're gonna put one on the bottom, one on the top, and then do the same on the other end. So these 2 pieces that I cut at 88 3/4, we're gonna put one on the bottom, one on the top. And I pre-measured and marked these boards like I showed. If you don't wanna do that, you can cut a template at 20 1/4 inch. So this piece here, I've cut it 20 1/4, and you can use this to space out in between, and then that way you don't have to pre-mark all this. Since I already have, I'm gonna do that, but I may use the template as well. And again, we're gonna use our 2.5 inch wood screws.
For this part of the project, it definitely helps if you have a helper to help line everything up and hold stuff from falling over. I'm doing it by myself, so I was using that template, which helped a lot.
Okay, now we're gonna put this one on top and then do the other end. When you're installing this top piece, it's hard because you can't rest it on anything. So you can use wood clamps, and this is gonna help you to be able to line it up so that you can get it in the right spot. Held in place, and it's just gonna make your life a little bit easier. As you can see, I've got the top and bottom on, which has created my equal spacing. I've done the same on that end. Just to show you this, we have 20 1/4 inch in between each of these ladders, which is what we want. So now we can move on to the next step. The next thing we want to do before we install this, since this is fairly big, it's just over 7 feet wide, we need to make sure that it's square. So we're going to take our tape measure, we're going to hook it onto the opposite corner, and we're going to come to this corner. And we want the same number on both diagonals. So 124 1/4 is what I have right now. And then 124 1/4. So we are square. which is perfect. To keep this thing square, I'm going to take a couple leftover 2x4s and screw them on here, which is going to hold this unit together. One at the top, one at the bottom. So we're going to take these 2 extra pieces, we're going to measure them at 88 3/4 and then cut them. So now that they're cut, we're going to line the top and the side up flush, and then we are going to screw this into place. Now this is what it looks like. We added this 2x4 on the back. That's optional, but it's a good idea, and I didn't initially account for those 2x4s. So if you want to do this, you're going to need 2 more 8-footers cut at 88 3/4. So I screwed it on, 2 screws in each, and this is going to keep it square, so keep the diagonals equal. And then I put a second one here. I put that one up 8 inches just because there's an actual curb I got to work around in the garage.
Generally, I can lift these up by myself. If not, grab a buddy to help you do this.
So you can see we've finished building this now. It's 4 rows wide, 5 totes tall. This comes out to 88 3/4 inch wide by 87 inch tall. And now, as you can see, we can take our totes and they simply will slide in wherever we want. So as you can see, if you want to access this bottom tote, you got to lift all these up, put them down, then you can access the bottom one, and then you got to restack them, which is such a pain. The way that I've built these, the totes, they slide in, they slide out. You can slide whichever one in and out that you want. They're easy to access. You don't have to stack and unstack totes. So this is what it looks like. Now we can take this and we can assemble it inside the garage. One of the questions I get asked somewhat regularly is, if you put a lot of weight in these, aren't they going to sag and they won't be able to pull out? So if you can see, I build them with 1.5 inch space here, so that when you do load these, if there's a lot of weight, there's room for it to sag. All right, everyone, so as you can see, I enclosed this side here just with some OSB so that they can hang stuff on there. And I put some OSB on the very top so that that can be used as a shelf. I anchored it into the back wall back there, and I put a couple tap cons into the floor. So this is solid and it's not going anywhere.
Thank you all for watching the video. If you have any questions or feedback, please leave it below in the comment section. I do my best to respond to all of them. If you could also leave a like or subscribe, it would help me out a lot. Thank you all. Take care.